Democratic lawmakers have been trying to figure out how much money they can spend next year without reopening the budget. Now they think they may have a plan. NBC Connecticut political reporter Mike Savino joins us live from the Capitol with more. So, Mike, how much are we talking about here?
Well, Kevin, Democrats are calling this a stabilization bill, and it's what they've been promising all session long. About $300 to $400 million in unspent money for some of the priorities that they've been laying out. But Republicans say this is not how this should be done.
The stabilization bill is addressing some of the things that we as a caucus felt needed to be addressed.
Democrats today presenting a plan to spend as much as $400 million in leftover money from the American Rescue Plan. The so-called stabilization bill touches on many Democratic priorities. One thing it doesn't do: reopen the current two-year budget, avoiding a fight with Governor Ned Lamont over his plan to shift $150 million in education funds.
That's when we start to change our tune in what we want to go for.
Some of the highlights of the plan include a combined $160 million for higher education, split between UConn and the CSCU system, $21 million for early childhood education, $24 million for mental health services, and $50 million for nonprofit service providers. That money would give a 2.5% raise to employees, matching what lawmakers gave to striking union workers last year. The head of the nonprofit Community Alliance said in a statement, programs have been underfunded for nearly 2 decades, and this increase is welcome.
I guess I am questioning the mental gymnastics, it seems, that the Democrats have gone through to try to convince the state of Connecticut that what they are doing today is not a budget.
But Republicans say Democrats should reopen the budget. They note the stabilization plan also shifts funding to address shortfalls and makes revenue changes, including raising fees on vehicle registrations to fund state parks. They also say the plan to spend one-time federal aid on recurring costs means the legislature will have to come up with money in the future.
The $400 additional million that are being spent this year somehow needs to be incorporated into the budget next year.
Now, Governor Ned Lamont issued a statement just a little bit ago thanking Democrats for putting this plan together. At the same time, he did say he still thinks ARPA money should only be used for one-time expenses. Meanwhile, there's a section of this bill that would allow board members for the state lottery, the airport authority, and other quasi-public agencies to get on the state's health insurance plan. We'll tell you why Democrats are pushing this and what critics think coming up at 5, live from the Capitol. Mike Savino, NBC Connecticut News.
Hey, Mike, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. If we could ask you a quick question. This stabilization bill and the $400 million coming from the American Rescue Plan, what if hypothetically this wasn't spent, or does it have to be spent?
It does have to be spent in some way. This, again, is part of that ARPA plan that was in response to COVID. If it's not spent by the end of the year, that money has to get returned to the federal government. Democrats said today that all of this money came in contracts that just looked like it wasn't going to get spent for one reason or another. That's why they're taking it back and trying to spend it elsewhere.
It will get spent. The Republicans' concern then maybe is that if it gets spent, then what happens next year? How do you reaccount for $400 million? Is that kind of what we have here?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. If you're spending it on operating expenses, these organizations like the nonprofits, like UConn, like the CSCU system are just probably going to come back in a future budget and say, hey, we had this money, now it's not there. They're going to call it a cut, even though it's one-time funding. That's the issue that Republicans are saying we're sort of creating in a future budget discussion.
Mike Savino, our political reporter live at the Capitol, making sense of this stabilization bill. Mike, thank you so much.